Hi, hello. Let's kick this off, I guess. This is going to be our last session in the series. The semester is almost done. I had my capstone project presentations today, and my exams are this week. I think kind of the same applies to you as well. So yeah, this is going to be the last session where we'll do a bit of new things, a bit of cleanup. And I hope you'll learn something from this as always. After this is done, I'll talk about what will be next for this project and how we're going to be developing going forward. Maybe any suggestions or any kind of contribution opportunities that might arise, but that's going to be at the end of the session. All right, so today I want to do two things. Well, actually, yeah, that's a good question to start off as well. Could you please tell us how can I be a part of this project? Yeah, that's a good one. I'll start from our repo. So we have a repository on GitHub, and it's an open source project. You can just come in here. It's in our GitHub organization. This project is just a website for our club, and the source code is here. You can browse it. We have a list of issues that you can take on. The up for grabs label usually means that this issue is a good one to just grab and start working. If you want to create some other issues, feel free to do so. If you notice that you want to improve something in the app, but it's not listed on GitHub, I'm always welcoming to kind of having this new issue button being pressed by people and creating other issues. And yeah, you can see that our people are creating pull requests. We've historically had some good contributions through the project, and that's how you can help develop the app. But yeah, so today we'll be focusing on something called context in React. And context is primarily being used for state management throughout your app. React docs are great to just learn information about different libraries in React and so on. So I'll probably just go through this, and we'll figure out how we can utilize this in our app and how this can be helpful. So yeah, let's get this going. So what's up with context? Context is, it basically provides a way to pass data through the component tree without having to pass props down manually at every level. What that means, exactly, yeah, that's a good point. It avoids props drilling. An example of that in our application, I'm going to show what I'm trying to avoid here. Go to like, I think the entry point of our app. Here's our theme provider. And this is actually also kind of an anti-pattern of having just like one component here, but this theme provider has information about which theme are we currently using. Are we using the dark theme or the light theme? And you can see that I'm passing this information down to the menu component. And then in the menu component, I'm passing the exact same information to this theme switcher. So the theme is being passed here, on theme changed as well. So it's exactly the same props as our component takes. And we want to avoid that because there's just some unnecessary data being passed down. It would be nice if our theme switcher could say something like, hey, grab me the current theme, and also like a method that I can call and trigger the theme change, right? That'd be great. So that's what we are going to be like refactoring today and modifying. Material UI actually provides their own like theme switcher, which for the sake of today and like learning context, I'm not going to touch. But like in Material UI, it's very easy to implement the theme switch. We've done it manually through CSS variables and like this piece of state. So I'm just going to improve that, and maybe later on we'll replace that with the material one. But yeah, that's like should be a fairly straightforward use case for provider. So okay, let's kind of look into this. Here they're basically explaining when should you use context. They're giving this example. They actually have also like a theme button, a theme example, and they show that you can create your provider, which will just be another component that we'll be developing. And our toolbar, I think, yeah, somewhere here there should be like fetching the data from the provider. But yeah. So they're also going into and explaining that it's not always the solution. You could go without using context. They're showing this example of like, hey, you have like a bunch of elements that you're passing the same props into, like right user and avatar size. That's redundant. So instead of doing that, yeah, it might feel redundant to pass down user and avatar size props through menu levels. The avatar component really needs it. So we could solve this without context, and we could pass down the avatar component itself. So yeah, what they're doing here is basically, yeah, by passing down like an avatar wrapped in some component. So we can see here that component needs to know only about the link and the avatar components, and they use user and avatar size, so these components don't need those props anymore. But yeah, we are not interested in that. We actually want to create a context and use the provider pattern. So you can see that here's how you create a context. When React renders a component that subscribes to this context object, it will read the current context value from the closest matching provider above in the tree, right? The default value argument is only used when a component does not have matching provider above it in the tree. All right, and that's how we actually use the provider. So context.provider, the context object comes with a provider, React component, allows consuming components to subscribe to context changes. Okay, so here are some like event functions and lifecycle hooks you can kind of hook into and do something upon components, mount, unmount, update, things like that. I think we can like look at an example and start implementing this. Let's see. Examples. So yeah, here, look at this. This is actually exactly what we want. A theme context they're creating has a default theme of themes.dark. They're using class components, by the way, which we're not. We're using functional components, so there might be some challenges with that. The theme button just fetches the theme from the context. So that's the whole thing, where our theme switcher will actually look into the context and kind of check out that stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So here's how we're actually going to set this up. In context.provider. I was kind of expecting them to have a separate file. I guess this is the theme context. Okay, let's kind of start making this, shaping this up and go from there. Let's also make sure my computer doesn't die. All right, that's great. Okay, so thinking have assets, components, pages. I'll have providers separately in a separate folder. Now create a new file. I'm going to call it theme provider.jsx. Let's see. All it's doing is exporting a theme context, which is a react.create context. I think it's going to be enough for me as well. So we'll need to make sure to import React. And we want the default value to just be the string of dark. At least that's the data that we've used. Maybe it was even worth like converting this component into a theme provider, because we already have this name here. That's fine. So yeah, you can see that we're using local storage to store theme as dark. Repo link. Yeah, sure. I'll paste the repo link here for anybody interested in the chat. Here's the issues list. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, so yeah, here's our theme context. And I think we can like start implementing this. Yeah, you can see that they're using like a very specific thing here. Context type, theme context. And then they're using this .context. I know there's a use context hook that we can use. So I'm going to try searching for that first. Use context, here we go. So use context accepts a context object, the value returned from React create context, and returns the current context value for that context. The current context value is determined by the value prop of the nearest my context provider above the calling component in the tree. Cool. Okay, so basically, this is going to be enough for now. Like we're not going to be changing our context yet. We'll look into that next. But now in my, let's go to close all these tabs. We don't need this. So we're going to go into the theme provider in our menu. I don't need to pass any of these props anymore. I also don't need to pass them down further to my theme switcher. Instead, my theme switcher will take, none of these. I mean, I can leave the args prop here. And what I was going to do for now, I'm going to say that on theme changed is just a dummy function, so it doesn't complain. But the theme prop, I'm going to actually destructure from use context here. And then the context that I'm going to provide is the theme provider. I need to make sure I actually import the correct one. Yeah, you can see that the MUI actually has their own theme provider. So I actually don't need this one. Yeah, I'm going to import it, but the one I do need is further down. It's in the provider. And instead of passing a string, I'm just going to pass an object of like theme equals to dark. Cool. Yeah. So with theme provider components, now it's an interesting thing. I can get rid of this component whatsoever and use our theme provider that we created just now and wrap everything in it. So let's do that. This is going to be important. I'm kind of going to leave this, but I'm going to grab the meat of this theme provider and pass it to our index.js. Instead of rendering the whole theme provider, I'm going to do this, grab the missing imports, probably like all of this. I will need a theme provider, but it will come from something else. It's going to come from provider's theme provider. We know that we are exporting theme context here, which is important in our theme switcher as well, because this should be theme context, I believe. All right. So this, I know it's confusing because they are called the same. Like we have a component of theme provider and a provider of theme provider. But I'm going to import theme context out of the theme provider, and now kind of following the steps that are outlined here. Let's look at the docs again. I need to wrap everything in our theme context.provider and give it the default value. So, okay, so we have our React strict mode. I'm going to say theme context.provider value of theme dark by default. The closing tag goes after the closing div tag here. Cool. Yeah, so the way our theme switcher works is by providing this data theme prop, which will be tricky now that I realize this. But I think it's going to be fine. Let's see. Because this theme also needs to go from our theme provider. Okay, I'll need a sec to think about this. I'm going to rename this file, not for it not to be too confusing. So our theme provider components, I'm just going to rename this to, I don't know, like theme component. And the theme component is going to accept just the children, is going to be like a simple div wrapper with this data theme. So I'm going to use, yeah, we're going to ditch switch theme for now and the state piece. And theme is actually going to be the same as what we've used in our theme switcher. So the theme is going to be destructured from use context. Yeah, I know it's going to be pretty confusing to start with, but I hope I'll kind of reiterate after I'm done and explain once again how everything works. Theme context. Here we go. There's our theme, and inside this div, I'm just going to render all the children. So this was already moved to our parents. No need for any of that. So this is very simple, right? We're fetching the theme. We have a div wrapper around whatever children we're being passed. And we're switching this data theme prop, which could actually be anything. Like this is our, this is like user defined, developer defined. There's nothing special about this. I could have named this whatever I wanted. But yeah, if you want to learn more how we implemented the theme provider, feel free to, or the theme switcher, feel free to check out the previous sessions. Okay, so we don't need this div anymore. Instead, what we need is our theme component, which we might even get rid of in the future. Like I want to first implement this. Whoops. I want to implement this as simple as possible. Let's have this as theme component. Theme component. All right, we have a provider which will store our data. We'll have a component which will actually switch the theme for the whole tree. And somewhere down in the menu, we have our theme switcher. So if we go to the menu here, oh yeah, right. I don't know why that's not navigating. Have our theme switcher, and in our theme switcher, we have theme of use context. Okay, let's see. I think this should compile fine. I'm gonna do npm start here. Wow. You attempted to import pages, resources, which falls out of the project /c directory. This is an index.js. Oh, I think because our relative imports are wrong. Yeah, this, I think this will need to be adjusted. So we just need to remove all of these guys. And yeah, that's actually why I couldn't navigate to the menu, because it's not the right import. So it's /component/menu, I believe. Let's see. I think this is rendered properly. Yeah, here we go. We can see our app. It's in the dark mode, which is cool. I think so. We're going to develop the functionality of like switching the actual theme a bit later today, but I just want to prove that the theme is being read from our provider. So in order to do that, I'm going to, I think this is like initial state. So I might not even need to provide it in here. I'm not sure actually. So maybe value is redundant. Oh, hey there. Excuse me, I couldn't hear you if you're talking. You're very muffled, I'm sorry. You can type it in the chat if you have a question. Okay, I'm gonna keep going here. So yeah, I just removed the value from the provider, but I think that is being driven by dark. Let me switch this to light, and we'll see if this affects our website. Anything break here? Cannot destructure property theme. Okay, so that is important then. I want to read docs a bit because I'm not sure what is the difference between providing like an object here versus providing one in here. I mean, either way, light should be our light theme, I think. Yeah, hey, look at that. So I changed it to light. Now we're in the light theme. So it is reading the values from our provider, which is cool. We kind of already have solved the issue, right? We're no longer providing, passing all of those props down, and we're also reading the context values from the provider. Okay, yeah, I want to read about what is the difference between providing the value and actually specifying things in like this create context object. I think it mentions it in the tutorial. So let's check this out. So yeah, that's the example with composition. Default value. The default value argument is only used when a component does not have a matching provider above it in the tree. Oh, I see. So this value will be used if, for example, I try to use context of theme context and it can like find my provider above it. It's like the fallback values that it will be using, which, yeah, I'm fine to just set to dark. That's completely reasonable. And then the value is the actual like initial value of my provider. Now it kind of makes sense. Provider component accepts a value prop to be passed to consuming components that are descendants of this provider. One provider can be connected to many consumers. Providers can be nested to override values deeper within the tree. Oh yeah, that's also nice. Yeah, so all the descendants of the provider will re-render, or sorry, all the consumers of the provider that its descendants will re-render each time the value prop changes, which is going to be our next step. We're going to make sure our button works to actually change the theme here. Okay, so I think if like what I've done is I've set the dark theme here as a fallback value, but my actual value is still light. If I refresh, I think this should still be light. So it's actually the value that's driving the actual state of the provider. Cool, I'm actually pretty satisfied with this. I'm gonna commit here. Or, well, actually, wait a second. I'm on master here, right? Let's check out the new branch. Sure, or actually, I'm going to call this like chore context refactor. Great context. Okay, cool. Next step, I want my functionality to change the theme back. So you can see that I'm clicking on this button. It's not switching anything. It's not functional yet. That's because I commented out. Well, actually, it's because of this. I just stubbed out the on theme changed. I actually want to control my context out of this. So yeah, let's read about how to do that. We'll need to do some research. Let's see here, high order of components, orals. Okay, dynamic context. I wonder if they have like an example with changing. Oh yeah, here we go. Updating context from a nested component. It's often necessary to update the context from a component that is nested somewhere deeply in the component tree. In this case, you can pass a function down through the context to allow consumers to update the context. Yeah, here you go, like toggle theme. Here's our function. And once again, this is a fallback value. See how when we create the context, we don't actually provide functionality in here. This will only be used if something wrong happens and you don't have your provider above your component. So here's our theme toggler button. And you can see that on click, it's toggle theme. In here, they're using theme context consumer, which is also a valid choice. Like instead of using this use context hook, I could have just wrapped this in a consumer and destructured the theme out of it. It's like equivalent what you can do. And here's our toggle theme. Okay, but what I'm interested in is how they implement this. Okay. Interesting. So the toggle theme is a function that sets the state of this. This is interesting. So the state of the theme is like above the provider, seems like, which I'm curious if that's like a common pattern. Okay, well, this is going into another example. I mean, we can probably do something similar here. It would be nice to like kind of encapsulate the state somewhere. So they're doing the same exact thing, by the way. They're doing like a switch of light and dark theme. Okay, let's think about this. Maybe I'll do some more research. We could just do it in our theme components as well. I was kind of thinking about getting rid of this, but might as well have this in here. In this case, actually, the theme component will need to be above theme provider because the state of the provider needs to be above. But okay, let's not jump ahead of ourselves. We want something called onTheme changed, or actually, what was it called in the theme switcher? Yeah, it's onTheme changed. OnTheme changed is just a common function here. And instead of fetching it from here, I'm going to just say, here is our onTheme changed. So now we're fetching it dynamically from our context. Now, I might just like incorporate this into a single file. Now that I think about it, maybe that's going to be best, actually. So I'm going to copy this function, and I'm going to just paste it in here. It's going to be our theme provider. What it's going to do is it still accepts children, but now it's going to actually render our theme provider. So I'm just kind of collapsing two components into one. You'll see how it ends up. So instead of having theme context provider and theme component, I'm only going to have theme component, which is now I'm kind of renaming it to theme provider. So this is going to be theme provider, and this will go inside the theme provider. So it's going to be, I don't care if it's like above or below. The only thing I care about is that it preps all of our children. We can actually, even provide like some data in here. No need to do it outside. I'm going to delete this file. I don't need this anymore. And in here, I'm going to go get rid of this, decrease the indentation, and make sure that our theme provider is a thing. So I want it from provider's theme provider. Okay, we don't need use context because this is actually the point where we're going to be defining the state. So instead of this, I'm going to bring back our state things here. So use local storage works very much the same as use state, but it also caches its values from local storage. So I'm going to bring this back as well. And then here's our switch theme function, which we are going to provide as our value for our provider. So switch, actually, this is going to be on theme changed function, right? Switch theme. Cool. Okay, so the functionality, like the core of our theme switcher, remained the same. I didn't modify this at all. All I did is introduce this like provider context hack, or I mean pattern, which now allows us to wrap everything in a theme provider, and then in the places where we need the theme switcher, actually grab that by using use context. So once again, our theme provider, I mean, I'm still to prove this works, but our theme provider is exporting two things. It's exporting our theme provider component, which is a wraparound theme context provider and has our state in it. And the second thing it's exporting is the actual theme context, which you required to fetch the data in different child components. Okay, let's see if this works. I have high hopes for this. I already see an error, so we probably need to fix that. Index.js, components, theme components, right, this doesn't exist anymore. Don't need this as well. And I don't need this. Cool. Hey, look at that. Okay, we have our theme switcher back. Our icon doesn't change. That's what I'm noticing. Let's see if that's an issue. Sorry, why is that an issue? I also wonder if our local storage value updates. Yeah, here you go. Theme of light and dark. I'm actually gonna clear, never mind. Yeah, so it's being cached, like our light theme is being cached and the dark theme being cached. If we go back to our application, the state will be saved between different sessions. Cool, okay, let's, I'm gonna commit and figure out why that icon isn't functional. Bring back theme switching functionality. Okay, let's look into the theme switcher. You can see that it's like, if our theme is dark, it's going to show different icons here. So I wonder if our context doesn't get re-rendered. And I wonder why that's happening. Because I think like our whole tree should be re-rendered. Let's put some logs in here and figure this out. Console theme. Let's refresh. Okay, so theme is light, which is fine. And now if I switch this, our theme is still light, interestingly enough. So it's never switches to the other. Oh, haha, I know why this is happening. This is because our theme is always light. Like I forgot to actually kind of bring back this theme state in our provider. Our provider thinks the theme is always light. So that's why. I wonder why this worked. I guess because like this data theme is actually reading the actual theme state, but our provider is always providing light. Doesn't provide the actual value. So we can remove this. And I think that should fix it. Yeah, so our theme is dark. We can see the sun and it's changing now. And you can see that the theme is changing as well. Cool, yeah, that was a fun fix to do. Okay. Implement, or let's say fix switch button. Cool. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, I think I'm done with provider for today. Like, I hope it was understandable for what we've done. Like, I'm gonna put this for PR and show the different changes that we did throughout the session. So kind of to reiterate it again. But this is a very important thing to understand. And if you're building a large application, you will always find yourself that you have some states that you don't want to be passing down your component tree over and over again through like similar props. It's just going to be a nightmare. So it's a very nice use case when you just have your provider component that provides all the value to its siblings, to descendants, and then the descendants could just read them either by using use context or context dot consumer. So yeah, let me create a PR here. Yep. Context. Let's write what we did. So I'm actually just going to get the commit messages here, incorporate context, bring back theme switching functionality. I mean, these were just like fixes. Provider pattern. I didn't have an issue number. That's actually a bad practice. Usually you should always have an issue that you're working on. I'm just lazy. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it at this. And I'm going to continue in the browser here. So, whoa, this is going crazy. Okay, 5 files changed. Let's see what they are. So our menu component got much cleaner. All it does is it doesn't need to pass some random components it doesn't care at all about, and it doesn't pass them through in the theme switcher, and our theme switcher is much nicer. So this is a win, I think. Yeah, the theme provider, we got rid of that. Here's our theme switcher components. Instead of taking these extra args, we're now getting them from use context. So just the switch row here, nothing too fancy. So a lot of stuff changed in index.js. We kind of brought back the whole application structure from our theme provider, which should be the case. Like your high level of your application should be contained in your index.js. It shouldn't be in like a random component. So I'm glad this got put back, and we developed the theme provider, which was very important. And yeah, here's the theme provider. So 2 very simple things: theme context with an object defining what like fallback values do you want to use, as well as the theme provider itself, the theme provider component. Exactly the same state for our theme that was there before, and we're passing that as a value to our theme context dot provider. So yeah, if you are new to this concept, make sure to practice like theme context provider. I'm also relatively new to this, but I've seen it in a lot of projects over the past few years. But yeah, like this is a common pattern. Like React creates context, and theme context dot provider is something you get out of the box with React, and it's very nice to use in your apps. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, are there any questions before I spend like 5 minutes on something else before we wrap up here? Any questions with what we've covered with context dot provider? Here. Okay, I don't see any questions. I have 10-ish minutes left. I'm gonna see what I can do, what can be improved in our app in those 10-ish minutes. First, I'm gonna merge this PR. Yeah, that's fine. Cool. What other patterns you can advise me to learn? That's a great question. So, I mean, generally, like there are a few go-to books for software development patterns. One is called, and it's probably not the first book you should be reading about this, but the most popular one is the Gang of Four. Gang of Four design patterns. So this is a very popular book. I think it should be like posted on some resource. I don't even think you need to buy it, to be honest. And it contains a lot of different patterns here, provider included. Singleton pattern, factory pattern. There are some pretty popular ones, some that you won't see in the real world. The one that I went through was had first design patterns. So this book right here. It also goes in detail into design patterns, and it's like a very high level application. They're using something like Java or like a very common language to describe all of those patterns, but it's a must read. Like if you want to, either this or the first book, the Gang of Four, is a must read if you want to learn design patterns. I think I can't remember the resource name, like the website name, but there is a good website to learn software design patterns as well. Yeah, I can't remember the name, to be honest. If I will, I'll probably send it on Discord as a follow-up to this event. But yeah, look into Singleton. Like Singleton is a very popular pattern and is being used a lot, especially in some basic game development. Factory pattern is a interesting pattern as well. Friend advised me a clean code book. I haven't checked it out. It does ring a bell. Clean codes. This is the one you're talking about? Yeah, I think so. I think it definitely rings a bell. Like it's probably fairly popular. I don't know too much about it, but yeah, for sure. I think that's a good choice. Yeah, I mean, 95 liked 95%. Give it a read. Oh, observer pattern is pretty like it's all the event systems are based on an observer pattern. The observer pattern is pretty obvious and straightforward when you hear it. And it's like, duh, that's how it's supposed to work. But it's also nice to kind of learn and know how to write it from scratch. All the like subscribers and listeners and emitters. So I'm just gonna type in the chat a few that I know off of my head. So like Singleton, factory, observer. Today I showed provider. So yeah, should be good to start you off here. Yeah, it's very good that you're interested because it's very common on like interviews as well. My friend actually, when they got their job, they were asked in one of the interviews, the question that they were asked was something like, develop a simple observer system in JavaScript or in any other language that you're familiar with. So yeah, it's important to know how to write it. Just like some basics. So yeah, it's 6:57. We can chat a bunch if you have any other questions. I probably won't do anything else today. Oh yeah, I promised to mention what will happen to the repository because this is the last event. The semester is over. So my idea is basically to just keep maintaining this website as far as I care about it. I'll probably transfer the ownership to Alexander or whoever will be managing the club going forward. Because I'm graduating this semester. I'm going to be stepping down as the club vice lead, and my involvement in the club is unfortunately over. So we'll figure something out, but I think like keeping developing this website would be a cool exercise for you guys to practice React and JavaScript. And yeah, I think it was a pretty cool experience this semester to do this for sure. So yeah, check out the repo, and once again, feel free to post any new issues or create some pull requests. It's always welcome. All right, any other questions before we close off today? It's crazy outside. It's actually like snowing on April 18th. I love Canada. I love Canadian weather. There's a website to learn design patterns by doing. If you know one, actually, yeah, if you don't mind pasting this, the link in the chat. Because there's definitely one that I'm thinking about. I can't remember the name though. Oh, is this a question? Yeah, I'm gonna ask my coworkers and come back to you on Discord. I just don't remember, to be honest. Yeah, like that website I'm thinking about has pretty good practical examples, and if it doesn't even have stuff for you to write, it gives you some very nice examples and exercises, I think, that you can follow. So yeah, any other questions before we wrap up here? Well, all right. Thank you guys for joining. It's been a pleasure doing this series. I hope this will be continued, hopefully. We'll end up with a very nice website. It's already a great website. Yeah, thank you for your feedback, and thank you for your questions today as well. It was great. Some very good ones for like patterns and different books to check out. Yeah, feel free to check out other events on the DSC portal, and I hopefully will see you soon. Thanks for joining, guys. Bye-bye.